Welcome to the final video I'm making about my Channel crossing fieldwork, researching the Norman maritime invasion of England in 1066. This final video will talk about Pevensey Bay, where we're told in the Bayeux Tapestry, not least, where the Normans landed, though, as I said in the last video, the coastline has changed significantly in the last 950 years. Ever since the medieval period, this area has been drained to reclaim the land for arable and animal farming, but it's also suffered from sedimentation and siltation of rivers. So sediments have been deposited here, which have then been deliberately encouraged to reclaim that land. But as you can see here, the Pevensey Levels area, which is still marshland today, despite all these interventions, originally that body of water that would have been navigable to the shallow draft vessels of the Norman invasion stretched all the way to Hailsham, which is about 10 miles inland, and Pevensey Castle today is about a mile inland, but in the Roman period and into the medieval period up to the Norman conquest, it was possible for the fleet to sail right up to that Saxon shore fort. Although I didn't visit Pevensey Castle on this visit, I have been there before when I did my walk around the area that I'll talk about a bit more in a minute. And you can see here the Norman castle that sits within that Saxon shore fort, which is a 3rd century AD Roman fort that was built, and you can see the walls that go all around the fort area. In this reconstruction that English Heritage have put together, you can show the water coming right up to the walls, and here's a depiction of how the Norman fleet may have looked in the English Heritage information boards at the site, showing how they may have been arranged outside the walls of the Saxon shore fort. And this is that view again today, back from the castle towards the coast to the Pevensey Bay area that I was walking in on my visit this week. So you can see just how far inland now the castle is, and just the extent of that sort of land reclamation and landscape change that has taken place. The Norman invasion of 1066 is still definitely remembered in this area, though, of Pevensey Bay on the beachfront. When I was walking along the beach, I noticed this road sign, Norman Road, and when I went into the Pevensey Bay Visitor Centre to see if they had any local information, there were some people in there, just locals, catching up, and they very kindly had a chat to me and about the talks that go on in the area and the general interest there is of people, and there's a lot of knowledge and interest in this period locally. People are aware that they live on land that used to be part of the sea, and that they live in an area of a very significant historic event. As well as Pevensey, just around the coast from there is Hastings, that is possibly more closely associated with the Norman invasion of 1066 due to the Battle of Hastings that took place at Battle, just inland from Hastings, but that was the major settlement in the area, so it took that name. The Bayeux Tapestry also shows that the castle at Hastings was established in the immediate aftermath of the Normans landing at Pevensey, and I could see their castle. It's not massively clear in this picture because we were arriving at dusk, but you can see Hastings Castle from the sea as I was arriving on my sailing trip. And here are a couple of photos of the sea from Hastings Castle that I took on a previous visit. As I mentioned, in October 2021, I did the 1066 country walk around this area. I walked from Pevensey Castle to Battle Abbey, around the Pevensey Levels SSSI, the nature reserve and the wetlands in the area that would have originally have been a tidal bay that would have allowed the Normans to sail up to Pevensey Castle. As I mentioned, the local area is well aware of its connections to the Norman invasion, and in the summer before I did my walk, a series of sculptures connected to events from the Bayeux Tapestry and the Norman invasion were installed along the route of the 1066 country way. So these are a few of the ones that I saw on my walk. The very first one is a sculpture representing the Norman invasion fleet, and that's at Pevensey Castle, just as you enter it from the town side. So it's really lovely, and I really would recommend doing that walk, though, as you'll see in these pictures, despite centuries of land reclamation, the area is still very wet. This was October. It wasn't a particularly dry period. There was some rain while I was doing the walk, but even so, you can tell that the water management in this area is an ongoing problem even today. Although I didn't visit Battle Abbey as part of this research trip around the English Channel, I thought that it was an appropriate place to start to conclude this final video, because after the Normans had landed at Pevensey, they moved inland, and the battle that took place where Battle Abbey is today is well known to everyone, I think, as the Battle of Hastings, one of the most famous events in British history. The Normans won that battle and changed the course of history, arguably, for the next 950 years. The Norman conquest of England in 1066 is a perennially interesting subject to people, both members of the public and academics, and I think that there's still a lot that we can find out, things that we haven't maybe looked at before, or maybe haven't had quite the attention that other aspects have. And in my research regarding the maritime knowledge that the Normans may have required and may have possessed, I feel that there's areas there to both explore the event itself, the actual event of the crossing the English Channel with an army and the practicalities of that. Though I think that for me what's more interesting is the earlier history of 11th century Normandy and where the people who were involved in the Battle of Hastings and the Channel crossing and all that entailed. Where did they get the confidence that they felt that they had the necessary knowledge, the necessary skills available to them, and the necessary resources to assemble a fleet? We're told in the period sources that William declares that he won't be held back by a lack of ships, and Via Tapestry shows ships being built, but we also have indications, which are what I'm trying to sort of tease out in my research, for an existing maritime community along the coast of Normandy. People were involved in the maritime activities of fishing, salt working, whaling, trade. All of these different connections were prevalent before the Norman conquest, even if we might not have active evidence for the Norman army ever having set sail and fought against anyone overseas before. What I've done during my time in this research fieldwork is to get a really practical experiential view of those seascapes. So when I'm reading the sources now, and Guillaume says William was held back in the Saint-Valery-sur-Somme by a north wind, we had a north wind on this crossing, so I know what the modern capabilities of my chartered yacht were, and because I was lucky enough to do a visiting PhD research fellowship at the Viking Ship Museum in Roskilde last year, I've had some experience, not extensive, I hasten to add, sailing on the reconstructed 11th century ships. And the people at Roskilde have been doing this for 40 years. They have extensive experience of sailing these ships, so they know what sort of capabilities these ships had. And it's through a combination of the sort of the documentary research, the experiential research, and the work done by people like the Roskilde Viking Ship Museum that I can start to consider these landscapes and seascapes and how people may have interacted with them, and what sort of knowledge may have been required. And I find that really exciting and really interesting, and it's not, to the best of my knowledge, anything that's been looked at to the necessary degree, and certainly not recently. The scholarship that has looked at this is quite old now. It's from the 70s and 80s, so technology has moved on significantly. But I think these are questions that now it's a good time to ask, and I'm really excited to be doing my research. I really hope you've enjoyed these videos. I hoped that I could share this fantastic opportunity more widely. I'm exceptionally lucky to have been able to do this research, and I'd like to thank the Centre for Environmental Humanities at the University of Bristol and the Viking Society for Northern Research for financially supporting me in making this research trip. It's not a standard type of research. It's not an archival visit or travel to an archive. So it's not something that is very easy to get funded. So I really do appreciate the support. And of course, of friends and family who helped with the GoFundMe. And of course, the very generous crew who gave up their time to sail around the English Channel with me. So thank you for your interest. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it.